For years, I was always told that it's cheaper to own a home than it is to rent a home. And as a realtor of 23 years here in the Philadelphia area, well, I always thought that was the case too. But things are different in 2024. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation with someone and they told me that it was cheaper to rent than it was to buy. And that got my wheels turning. It piqued my curiosity. And believe it or not, a quick Google search brought me to a few websites that actually confirmed what they were telling me. But just like anything else, if you really want to understand what's going on, you can't trust everything you read on the internet. So I decided to do a little bit of research myself and really unpack whether or not it's cheaper to own or rent in 2024. And that, my friends, is exactly what we're going to go over in today's video. If you're new to the channel, I'm Chris Nelson, the team lead of the Nelson Home Group, helping buyers and sellers achieve their real estate goals here in the greater Philadelphia area. And if you're not new to the channel, welcome back. Either way, do me a favor. If you haven't already done so, go ahead, hit that thumbs up, ring the bell, and mash that red button so that, well, you're notified when I post future content. Now, back to the situation at hand, which is it cheaper to rent or is it cheaper to buy? Now, this is a pretty complex situation because there really isn't a source that just gives you the average rents for any particular market. So we're going to focus on a property that is in Upper Marian or King of Prussia, Montgomery County. And the reason I chose this property is because Upper Marian is a very well-known community. It's a community where the real estate taxes are lower than some of the surrounding municipalities. And well, it's right there where the King of Prussia Mall is. So if you don't know what the King of Prussia Mall is, either way, that's a whole nother video. You can go and do some research to figure out more or find out more about the King of Prussia Mall. But I found a property located at 333 Glen Rose Circle in King of Prussia. Now, this property is on the market. It's available for sale, and they originally listed the house on the market for $525,000. Why is that important? It's important to know because as of right now, the average sale price in Montgomery County is, you ready? $525,000. So I decided to use that property. And then I also said, well, if someone wanted to rent this property, how much would a property like this rent for? And I have all of that information, which I'm going to share with you. But before we do that, I want for you to understand that when you rent a property, that rental amount, it's not a formula. It's literally the amount that the owner of the property is comfortable receiving from a tenant. There's no algorithm or any science behind the number that you're paying in rent. But when it comes to a mortgage, it's a lot different. It actually is a formula. And the formula is known as PITI, P-I-T-I, principal, interest, tax, and insurance. Now, the principal is what you borrow. It's the amount of money that you are borrowing from the bank. It has nothing to do with the sale price, but literally just the amount of money that you're borrowing from the bank. So for example, if you're buying a home for $500,000 and you put down $100,000, theoretically your mortgage balance or principal is going to be right around $400,000. It's not going to be exact, but right around. Okay, so that's the amount that you're borrowing, principal. The interest is the amount of interest that you've agreed to pay over the course of the loan as you pay the bank back. Okay. In today's example, we're going to use 6.5%, which I'll explain why we're using that in just a moment. But again, the interest, and if you are buying a home, hopefully you have a 30-year fixed mortgage where that interest rate is going to stay with you for the life of the loan. So unless you refinance or do something along those lines, the interest rate will remain the same. The T stands for taxes, your real estate taxes. Now, this number can fluctuate because your real estate taxes are reassessed on a yearly basis. They don't always go up, but they very well could. And the last I stands for insurance. Now, when you own a home, generally people think of insurance as your homeowner's insurance, which is in place to protect you in the event there was some type of catastrophic event, like a fire or anything along those lines. But there could also be something referred to or known as private mortgage insurance. Private mortgage insurance will apply if you buy a home and put less than 20% down. Now, there are some loans out there that are creative that do not require PMI, but for the most part, they do. And the reason it's important to understand that in this scenario is because if you were to buy a home and put down 3.5%, which is what we're going to go over in this scenario, you're going to have mortgage insurance. All right. So let's make some sense of this. As I mentioned, the property at 333 Glen Rose Circle is now listed on the market. And if you were to offer that homeowner $525,000 and they accepted it and you were buying the home using an FHA mortgage, you're going to put down 3.5%. That 3.5% equates to right around $18,000. Okay? Now, your principal amount in this scenario, after putting that money down, is going to be right around $518,000. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, Chris, that doesn't add up. If I'm putting down $18,000 on a $525,000 sale price, why wouldn't the mortgage be lower? And there's reasons for that, but mostly the easiest way for me to explain it is that mortgage insurance, that premium, you also will be financing some of that up front. It gets a little confusing, but moral of the story is that your principal amount is going to be right around $518,000. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be using an interest rate of 6.5%, which is right around what you would get if you were qualifying for an FHA loan in today's market. And this property, the taxes are right around $5,300, $5,400 on a yearly basis. Now, again, in your mortgage payment, you're going to be paying that on a monthly basis. So in this scenario with taxes of about $5,300 on a yearly basis, you're only going to be paying about $442 on a monthly basis in your mortgage payment. Okay? The last thing to consider is the insurance. So for the sake of this example, I decided to use $900 to insure this home, which breaks down to be about $71 on a monthly basis. So if we break all of these things down, your principal of about $518,000 at 6.5% interest, your principal and interest payment is going to be about $3,250. We've already discussed that your taxes are going to be about $442. Your insurance is going to be right around $71. But lastly, we didn't factor in the private mortgage insurance. And in this scenario, it's a whopping $358. Now, because this house is also inside of an association, there's also a $100 monthly charge to the association for them to do things like keep up with the common areas in the development. When we calculate all of the moving mechanics of the mortgage payment, the principal, interest, tax, insurance, which includes both the homeowner's insurance and the private mortgage insurance, well, we can't forget that $100 HOA fee. The mortgage payment comes out to be about $4,230. That's pretty sizable mortgage payment. Now, I want for you to keep in mind that that PMI of 300 and some odd dollars, in a different scenario, if you were to put down more money, you would not have to deal with that PMI, which would drop the payment to roughly $3,800, $3,900. So pretty significant difference right there because of the PMI. This is why a lot of people say they want to put 20% down, which you don't need to put that down. Anyway, this same exact property, if it were available for rent in 2024, it's going to rent for anywhere between $4,000 to $4,200 on a monthly basis. So to be honest, one could create the argument that it is cheaper to rent than it is to own. Now, when you go to rent a property, generally a landlord's going to want first, last, and security deposit. So in this scenario, if the property were to rent for $4,000 on a monthly basis, you're looking at about $12,000 out of your pocket to move into your rental property, in comparison to the $18,000 that you need simply for your down payment. There's other fees that are going to be calculated into your overall closing costs when you go to buy a home. As a matter of fact, if I had to take a guess, I would think that you would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $30,000, $32,000 out of pocket if you were to buy a home. And that would be your down payment and your closing costs. We're not going into closing costs today because that has nothing to do with this video. We're simply looking at the cost of living, renting versus owning. So again, $4,000 in comparison to about $4,200 if you are paying PMI. Now, I want to be very clear. The $18,000 that you put down, that's still your money. That's money that's now factored into your equity. The $12,000 that you give a landlord isn't factored into anything. That money doesn't come back to benefit you in any which way, shape, or form. Another thing that I want for you to keep in mind is that when you rent a home, there's no equity. There's nothing that's going to come back and work in your favor. But when you own a home, that's quite the opposite. There actually is equity that is going to accumulate over time as you pay the mortgage down and the value goes up. That spread, that difference is referred to as your equity. So keep in mind, yes, on the surface, it may look cheaper to rent a home, but I think we can all agree that there's very little or no upside. And I don't want to bash anyone who's renting a home. As a matter of fact, I currently am renting a home. So I know exactly what it's like, and I know exactly why some people may decide to rent rather than own. No, don't get me wrong. I do own homes. I do own real estate, but currently right now, my family is renting. So either way, I want to make sure you understand that I'm not bashing, but just pointing out that owning a home still is the way to go at the end of the day. So with that said, if you have any questions or if you're thinking about buying or selling or renting, do me a favor, let me know. in the comment section of this video. There's a link for you to carve out a 15-minute consultation with me. There is also a free buyer guide. And if you're a seller wondering about the value of your home, there's a link down there for that as well. Once again, I'm Chris Nelson, the team lead of the Nelson Home Group, helping buyers and sellers in the greater Philadelphia area achieve their real estate goals. And if I can be of any value to you, I would love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.